Hello students, welcome to Intercultural and Global Communications. This is COM 550 week 3 and I am going to be giving you some updates and pertinent information about the course so that you can move forward with the assignments due this week, and there's a couple of them. As you look at the course syllabus, you'll see we are reading chapters 5 and 6 within the course text. We're also watching 2 videos, one on how language has transformed humanity, and then 2 we're looking at photos of endangered cultures, and an idea of really trying to look at how we can visually communicate some intercultural topics to each other. As we look through some of these assignments and things this week, you do have your intercultural journal update due, as well as your weekly review number 3. You have it's a discussion board, so you have your original posts due no later than Friday, and your reply posts due no later than Sunday. As we move through some of the course content, let's first take a look at the weekly review number 3. So this weekly review, you are required to do something a little different. You will be creating a Prezi or a voice thread of your of the post. So what you'll be doing here is you will create a voice thread or a Prezi that provides a comprehensive historical perspective of intercultural communication from the course readings this week. You'll actually find most of this in chapter 5. That's just a little hint. Then as you do that, you'll share at least one outside journal that demonstrates the use of intercultural communication and the significance of this type of communication to society. In your presentations, you need to have at least 3 outside sources. So one of them is the journal article, and you can go online and look for some other things that talk about the historical perspective of intercultural communication. It's important as we utilize this, we start to understand not just culture and how culture is defined and things of that nature, but that you start looking at how intercultural communications is really a subset of communication studies, but is very unique and different than some of the other areas that we explore. As you post this week, you should provide some type of rationale or explanation to that in your original post, and do not just post the link. And that's due by Friday, and then you will need to reply to 2 students with 250-word responses no later than Sunday. If you have any questions with the technological aspects of that, please get in touch with me early on in the week, as it is difficult sometimes to get in touch with me on the weekend. We're not required to respond on the weekend, and I would like to reach out to you early if you do have some issues so you're not late in missing that particular assignment. In your intercultural journal update, I'm expecting you to turn in half of what you've worked on. So the intercultural journal is, you're supposed to be journaling weekly between weeks 1 and 7. Things in your life that relate to the course topics. You should try to make about 1 to 2 entries per week, preferably 2, but if all you get is 1, that's fine. I'm looking for a minimum of 7 entries at the end. You're now submitting an update on this, so I need to see at least 3 entries at minimum. In week 7, you'll submit at minimum 7 entries. And we went through this on week 1, so you understand clearly what to do with this. I'm just looking for an update just to submit. Go ahead and plop your Word doc in there and attach it, so you don't have to worry about grammar or anything like that. I just want to see, okay, you're working on it, and these are some of the ideas you're wrestling with right now in relation to this assignment. If you have any questions, let me know, but that's what's required of that. You're just sending me half of what you've done for the intercultural journal. In addition, I want to spend some time looking at the ideas of the idea of culture and communication studies. Culture can tend to be an ambiguous and difficult term to define. As we move through some of these ideas, we understand that scholars have created a little bit of a paradox as to within intercultural communication research, since the term culture itself is very difficult to define and to understand. There's a lot of different ambiguous terms that relate to defining culture, and oftentimes they tend to be very elementary or not very deep in terms of a scholarly perspective. So as we move through this, it's important to know there are some good definitions of culture within the course readings. One is found on, most of them are found on page 77, but one in particularly is that culture or civilization, taken in its ethnographic sense, is that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, law, morals, customs, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by persons or members of a particular society. It's also important to know that culture is defined within Gertz's perspective of the text is a historically transmitted pattern of meanings embodied in symbols, a system of inherited conceptions expressed in symbolic forms by means of which men and women communicate, perpetuate, and develop their knowledge and attitudes towards life. That's from Clifford Hertz. We're going to be going through his theory of cultural hermeneutics in this lecture here, and it's really important to know this definition because it accounts for the evolutionary aspect and quality of culture, and the process and pattern-based structure of culture, and the tradition and cross-generational transmission of culture. It's really important to see that within this definition, the description of culture relates to this idea of symbol sharing and interpretations of reality, which really says that culture goes hand in hand with communication. Within the chapter, they have agreed that scholars have decided to 4 modes of inquiry in terms of intercultural communication research. The first one is, and I defined the first one for you here, and I'll be describing the other 3. But the first one is intracultural. And this is where intercultural is concentrated on a range of topics to the study of self, and all interactions, style, norms, and behaviors are constructed and discovered within a given culture. So particularly the area of intercultural study of the self holds an important distinction to the relative to the broader study of identity. Despite the significance of this area of inquiry, it's very vastly understudied. And really, a lot of it relates to in studying the self, researchers tend to explore self-disclosure, self-concept, self-efficacy, personhood, perceptions, motivations, and constructs of reality related to oneself. So intra is concentrated within yourself, your intracultural. Intercultural is credited with being coined with the larger phrase intercultural communication. But largely, intercultural is also often referred to as cross-cultural. Even so, intercultural relations combined with race relations and sociology and cultural symbols and such are vastly understudied as a whole and largely relate to more of anthropology and sociology and things of that nature. So as we examine social relations and such, it's important to know that intercultural communication is commonly referred to face-to-face interaction between 2 or more members of opposing cultures or different cultures. With the proliferation of computer-mediated communication, face-to-face criterion now in this area of research is optional. It has to do more with speaking to one another through computer-mediated communication qualifies as being intercultural. But it's really when 2 people, at least a minimum of 2 people, interact that are from differing cultures, and that can be very loosely interpreted. How you define culture, what you consider cultural, defining as culture, and making those cultures different. So 2 people that may be of the same ethnicity may grow up in 2 different cultures. One may have grown up in a native country and may subscribe to the native culture of that country, and another one may have grown up in a different country and subscribes to that particular country's identity and things of that nature. So it's very important to know that that's very loosely interpreted. The next one is cross-cultural. Like intercultural communication studies, cross-cultural communication research has been an environment conducive for the idea of identity research. So cross-cultural communication refers to the comparisons of interaction patterns and behaviors among cultures themselves, not necessarily the interpersonal communication aspects of intercultural communication. That's for intercultural communication. Cross-cultural deals more with the comparison to interaction patterns and behaviors among cultures, and really looks at more of the anthropological approach of comparing and contrasting cultural phenomena such as language and conversational strategies and things of that nature. So we're looking more at the cross-cultural ways that we communicate within our interaction and patterns, not the interpersonal aspect, which is intercultural. Critical culture in itself really has more of a robust area of inquiry that works with implications in regarding retrieved agencies of social justice, contested hegemony, and public political deliberation, really looking at the idea of critically evaluating culture and the way that we utilize culture within our interactions with each other. So it really takes all the above three and provides a critical lens looking at it, more of a rhetorical perspective of culture. As we go through the text, I really wanted to spend some time looking at cultural hermeneutics. This is at a good point for us to look at this and spend some time with it. For those of you that have already completed the comm theory class, you should be familiar with Gertz's work on this. He considers communication as all communication as some type of cultural interpretation, and as we interpret communication and texts, we need to provide thick and thin perspectives, meaning a thick description is where the interpreter is providing communication and analysis of those communications, text, oral, whatever it may be, from the native person's point of view, even if they may not be the native to that culture or to that society. A thin description is just merely describing behavioral patterns and with little sense of what it means to the participants itself. So a thick description would fit within the intercultural aspects of intercultural communications, and cross-cultural communication would be more of a thin description. All communication is related to a hermeneutic circle, starting with understanding, moving through engagement, back up to understanding to have a full knowledge of the whole of life. It's important to know as we move through this that we need to view communication in terms of thick and thin descriptions of what it's like, because when we're dealing with different cultures, we can find that there may be a lot of communication errors within the nuances of how we understand and perceive things the way we may say them. If you have any questions moving forward, let me know. Like I said, we're reading chapters 5 and 6 this week, and we're really getting into this idea of splitting hairs within intercultural communication and understanding the 4 modes of it. You were giving me your update for your intercultural journal, so I need to see at least 3 entries, and you're also completing a discussion board that is due on Friday with replies due on Sunday. If you have any questions, let me know. I look forward to interacting with you. God bless.